At the vanguard of recent political protests in Russia is the so-called creative class, well-educated, successful young urban professionals. Why have they been taking to the streets?
Because of injustice, political and economic, it's everywhere.
One of the new political activists is businessman Pavel Yarikov, who in the 90s revitalized a former Soviet collective farm and then set up a chain of shops selling kitchens, which he says he lost to an illegal takeover. He's the founder of the Russian Business Union.
If you exclude the commodities sector, we can say that just 20% of the Russian economy works effectively. But Vladimir Putin can't claim the credit for that. It's due to the efforts of private businessmen. These people who want to do something important for their country studied what was being done in Western countries, and then they integrated their Western experience into the Russian economic realities.
Vladimir Putin became president in 2000 when Russia was just starting to recover from the financial crisis of 1998 and a default on its debt. The main tasks were to cut debt, restore economic growth and reduce the economy's dependency on oil exports. Now Russia's economy is the sixth largest in the world in terms of purchasing power, and it's becoming a member of the World Trade Organization. People are better off than in the 1990s and are consuming. Inflation is lower than for many years, and Russia has the third largest gold and foreign currency reserves in the world. But beyond the headline figures, things are far from rosy. Energy exports have increased as a proportion of total exports, and the crisis of 2008-2009 demonstrates how much the country is exposed to the volatility of global oil and gas prices. In late 2008 and early 2009, Russia went through its first recession after 10 years of economic growth. The average price for Russian oil clearly shows the link. The head of the Russian Parliament's Economic Policy Committee has an explanation for the slow progress on reforms.
When we started work in 2000, we had to pay off our external debt. That's why we were unable to fully diversify our economy early on, and that has to be recognized. Because development was held back by the immense external debt of nearly $160 billion, 120% of GDP. So we paid off almost all our foreign debt and then immediately focused on all areas of the Russian economy, starting to help them to develop.
Russia's government has very low debt levels, less than 3% of GDP, but Russian companies owe $500 billion, almost a third of GDP. There's also a problem with money leaving Russia. The rate of capital outflow doubled last year from 2010. And the director of macroeconomic studies at Moscow's Higher School of Economics says the country's commodity-driven economy doesn't attract investors.
Revenues from oil and gas exports accounted for a quarter of the Russian federal budget in 2000. Now they account for half of the budget. It's not difficult to see why this dependency is increasing. The investment climate in Russia is deteriorating. During the presidency or premiership of Vladimir Putin, Russia has dropped sharply in all world rankings of competitiveness, of corruption perception rankings, and investment climate rankings. So every year it's becoming more and more difficult to do business in Russia.
Now, with Putin trying to return to the Kremlin for the third time, Russia faces the same challenges as 12 years ago. It still has to reduce its energy export dependency and modernize the economy. Top politicians talk all the time about tackling corruption and reducing bureaucracy, but both have risen dramatically since 2000. And a major priority for the next Russian president, as for leaders worldwide, will be coping with the latest global economic crisis, more serious than the one of 12 years ago.